He wasn't prepared for the tremor in the man's voice behind him to unravel everything he thought he knew about his own dealership. But the moment those desperate words cut through the polished showroom air, Ethan Caldwell felt the foundation of Summit Ridge Motors shift beneath his feet, and he knew the quiet visit he had planned was about to turn into something far more explosive than a routine undercover check. Ethan sat in the driver's seat of his aging Honda Civic at the far edge of the dealership lot, fingers drumming lightly against the cracked steering wheel as he stared at the bright glass facade of the building he had built from nothing 12 years earlier. From the outside, Summit Ridge Motors looked every bit the success story business magazines love to feature. Rows of spotless trucks aligned with military precision, banners boasting record-breaking quarterly sales, and a steady stream of customers moving in and out beneath the bold blue signage. But over the past 5 months, something had been gnawing at him, a pattern of online reviews that didn't match the culture he believed he had created. Glowing praise mixed uneasily with complaints about surprise fees, confusing financing structures, and pressure tactics that felt more predatory than professional. Ethan had always believed that reputation was earned one handshake at a time, a lesson taught to him by his father, who had run a modest repair shop in rural Ohio where honesty was currency and trust meant survival. And the idea that his flagship location might be drifting away from those principles left a metallic taste in his mouth. That was why he had chosen today to come alone, unannounced, dressed not in tailored suits and Italian leather shoes, but in faded work boots, worn jeans, a denim jacket with frayed cuffs, and a baseball cap pulled low enough to shadow his features. His usual clean-cut appearance replaced by several days of stubble and a posture deliberately relaxed to the point of near slouching. None of the newer sales staff had met him in person since he had spent the last 2 years expanding into neighboring states, delegating daily oversight to his regional management team, and especially to Victor Lang, the ambitious assistant manager who had recently been promoted to oversee operations at Summit Ridge. Ethan had trusted Victor's polished reports and steady revenue increases, but numbers could conceal as much as they revealed, and the inconsistencies in customer feedback had convinced him that spreadsheets were no longer sufficient. Stepping out of the Civic, Ethan locked the door with a quiet click and inhaled deeply, adopting the persona he had prepared during the drive over. Eric Miles, independent contractor, recently landed a series of construction jobs requiring a dependable heavy-duty truck, and as he walked toward the entrance he noticed the showroom lights reflecting sharply against the afternoon sun, casting long beams across the polished tile floor visible through the windows, while inside a cluster of sales associates lingered near the front desk scanning the lot for potential buyers with the practiced attentiveness of fishermen watching for movement beneath still water. The automatic door slid open and a blast of conditioned air greeted him along with a bright smile from a young salesman who approached with energetic precision. "Welcome to Summit Ridge Motors," the man said, extending a hand. "I'm Kyle. What can we get you into today?" And Ethan shook his hand firmly, but without executive confidence, lowering his voice slightly to fit the role. "Name's Eric," he replied. "Been saving up for a work truck. Construction. Need something reliable, nothing fancy. Budget's around 35. Kyle's eyes flickered with calculation before settling into enthusiasm as he gestured toward the lot, immediately steering Ethan toward a row of late-model pickups while launching into a smooth presentation about towing capacity, fuel efficiency, and limited-time inventory movement incentives. Ethan listened carefully, not just to what Kyle emphasized but to what he avoided mentioning, noting the rhythm of the pitch, the selective framing of pricing details, and the subtle language designed to create urgency. They stopped beside a charcoal gray Silverado with chrome trim gleaming under the sun, and Kyle ran his hand across the hood as if presenting a prize. "This one just came in last week," he said. "Perfect for hauling, excellent service record, and it includes our Platinum Assurance package for added protection." And Ethan's attention sharpened instantly, because he knew that package had always been positioned as optional, an add-on customers could decline without penalty, yet Kyle spoke of it as though it were inseparable from the vehicle itself. Ethan kept his expression neutral, crouching to inspect the tires, peering beneath the chassis, asking measured questions about maintenance history, while mentally cataloging every statement Kyle made. After a brief test drive around the block, during which Kyle reiterated how quickly trucks were moving and how smart buyers acted decisively, They returned to the showroom to run some numbers, and Ethan felt a quiet tension settle in his chest as he followed Kyle to a desk near the center of the floor. The showroom buzzed with overlapping conversations, printers humming, keyboards tapping, and customers studying brochures. Yet beneath the surface, Ethan sensed something less visible, a faint current of pressure that seemed to pulse through each interaction. And as Kyle began entering information into his computer, Ethan's gaze drifted across the room, where he spotted Victor Lang emerging from his glass-walled office, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, surveying the floor with an appraising expression that lingered just a second too long on each potential sale. Ethan turned back toward the paperwork just as Kyle cleared his throat and began outlining preliminary figures, the base price hovering slightly above the stated budget, followed quickly by references to protection coverage, processing adjustments, and administrative considerations that were mentioned casually but not yet itemized. And Ethan prepared to ask for clarification when a voice behind him rose sharply enough to slice through the ambient noise. "That's not what we agreed on," the man said, and the strain in those words caused Ethan's spine to stiffen. He didn't turn immediately, forcing himself to remain in character, but he could hear the tremor of disbelief, the rustle of contract pages being shuffled anxiously, and another calmer voice responding with rehearsed composure. "Sir, everything is clearly outlined in the final documentation," the second voice said, and Ethan recognized it as Victor's. "But the total was $32,000, the customer insisted. This says 36. We went over this twice." Ethan felt a cold awareness wash over him as the implications began to crystallize, and though he kept his eyes on the screen in front of him, every sense sharpened toward the exchange unfolding only feet away. He had come searching for inconsistencies, for procedural lapses, for perhaps a misguided sales technique or two, but the desperation embedded in that buyer's voice suggested something deeper, something systemic. And as the air in the showroom seemed to thicken with tension, Ethan realized that the real investigation was no longer theoretical. It was happening behind him in real time. Martin's strained voice hung in the air as Ethan sat at Kyle's desk pretending to review numbers, every word behind him confirming that what he feared was unfolding in real time. "We agreed on 32,000, Martin said again, his fingers trembling around the contract, while his wife stood beside him looking stunned. Victor Lang remained composed, his tone smooth and controlled. "The base price was 32, he replied, tapping the document. "Additional protections and market adjustments bring it to the final total." The phrasing was careful, technically structured, intentionally vague. Ethan didn't need to see the paper to know those additions hadn't existed in Summit Ridge policy when he last reviewed pricing standards. "You told us the deposit locked everything in," Martin argued. Victor gave a sympathetic nod that didn't reach his eyes. "Deposits secure availability, not structure." The extra $4,000 sat between them like a wall. Kyle shifted nervously beside Ethan. "We can continue your paperwork," he muttered. Ethan lowered his voice. "Before we do, I need a full breakdown." Kyle rotated the screen. Line items appeared: platinum assurance package, regional supply adjustment, administrative compliance fee. Official sounding labels masking inflated costs. "Are these optional?" Ethan asked calmly. Kyle hesitated. "They're standard now." "Since when?" Kyle's eyes flicked toward Victor's office. "Since management updated procedures." That was all Ethan needed to hear. This wasn't confusion, it was directive. Behind them, Martin's voice cracked. "We don't have another 4,000. That deposit was our savings." Victor leaned in slightly. "If you withdraw, you forfeit the $5,000 deposit under the cancellation clause." Silence followed, thick and crushing. Ethan felt anger rise, but forced himself to remain still. The structure was painfully obvious. Secure a large deposit. Introduce mandatory add-ons late. Make walking away financially unbearable. Coercion dressed as policy. Ethan stood casually and moved toward the coffee station for a better vantage point. Near the printer, two finance employees whispered. "Victor wants platinum on every deal," one said. "If they resist, adjust the APR. And if they walk," the other asked, "deposit covers it." The casual tone made it worse. This wasn't isolated pressure, it was systemized. When Ethan returned, Martin's shoulders had slumped in defeat. Victor slid a pen across the desk. "You're making the responsible choice," he said softly. The word responsible felt calculated. Ethan glanced at the wall of customer service awards and felt a sharp disconnect between those polished plaques and the quiet desperation beneath them. Kyle cleared his throat. With everything included, you're at about 39 out the door. The number landed heavier than before. That escalated. Ethan replied evenly. Kyle nodded stiffly. Inventory demand. Ethan studied him. Not greed, fear. Do you agree with this process? Ethan asked quietly. Kyle paused. It's how we're told to do it. That admission confirmed it. Leadership had reshaped the culture. As Martin sighed, resignation replacing protest, Ethan felt clarity settle over him. The issue wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a strategy, and the architect of it stood only feet away, confident, polished, and unaware that the man observing him wasn't just another customer, but the owner preparing to confront him. Victor didn't notice the shift in Ethan's posture when he approached the glass office, but he sensed opportunity the moment Ethan asked to speak privately about clarifying the structure. And within minutes they were seated across from each other, the showroom visible behind transparent walls like a stage where the same performance repeated itself deal after deal. Victor folded his hands neatly on the desk. Concerns? He asked, tone measured. Ethan kept his voice steady, still playing Eric. I just want to understand why the numbers keep changing. Victor studied him for a moment, then leaned back with the relaxed confidence of a man who believed he controlled the rules. Margins on trucks are thin, he said quietly. Real profit comes from packages and adjustments. Customers focus on monthly payments. We focus on sustainability. The word sustainability nearly made Ethan laugh. So the fees are required? Ethan pressed. Victor gave a faint smile. Required enough. They sign. He stood and walked toward the window overlooking the lot. Look, the owner cares about growth. Revenue's up. That's what matters. This is how modern dealerships survive. The arrogance in his voice erased any remaining doubt. Ethan rose slowly, removed his cap, and let his natural authority return. I care about growth, he said evenly, but not like this. Victor turned. Confusion flickering before recognition drained the color from his face. Mr. Caldwell, call everyone to the floor, Ethan interrupted. Within minutes the staff gathered in uneasy silence. Ethan stood where every customer could see him. I visited today as a buyer, he began calmly. What I witnessed does not represent Summit Ridge Motors. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. He outlined the inflated add-ons, the manipulated deposits, the pressure tactics. He made it clear that all pending contracts were frozen pending review and that every customer charged undisclosed fees would be contacted personally. When he turned to Victor, his voice remained controlled. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. The words landed heavier than anger ever could. Security escorted Victor out as whispers spread across the showroom, but Ethan's focus shifted to the remaining staff. If you felt pressured into participating, now is the time to step forward, he said. Integrity will never be punished here. Kyle was the first to nod. Others followed. Later that evening, as the last customers left and the lights dimmed, Ethan stood alone near the entrance where he had first heard Martin's trembling voice. He knew repairing trust would take time. Refunds issued, policies rewritten, culture rebuilt. But he also knew something more important. The problem had been exposed before it became irreversible. Summit Ridge would not be defined by hidden fees or manufacturer pressure. It would be defined by what happened next. And this time, he wouldn't manage from a distance. He would lead from the floor, where every handshake either built trust or broke it.